Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, originally published in 1818. A story that has lasted so many generations and through so many iterations that we just accept it as part of our modern day culture. From the original Universal film in 1931 to its remakes in 1994, 2004, 2015, the TV show The Frankenstein Chronicles, which I was actually quite a bit of a fan of, The Bride of Frankenstein, The Son of Frankenstein, Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, again another favorite film, Frankenweenie, Frankenhooker, Frankie Stein from Monster High, all throughout our modern culture, including Once Upon a Time, this is a story that sticks with us. And you may have guessed, but today in my Geekdom, we'll be spending the most of our time talking about its latest iteration from Guillermo del Toro on Netflix. So join me at the Movie Mart. We'll take a quick stop later on at the television subdivision and a shout out to the tabletop hilltop. But let's take that time and talk about Frankenstein. Now, one of the most fascinating things about all the iterations of Frankenstein is that there is not a single one you can successfully use to cheat on an English paper. None of them. We accept the story of Frankenstein if it gets across Mary Shelley's original point about man's abuse of power and wanting to play God. The rest is kind of there to fill in as you wish, and that is exactly what Guillermo del Toro did. So his latest film, starring Oscar Isaac as Victor Frankenstein, Jacob Elordi, I think that's how you say his name, I apologize, as the creature, Christopher Waltz, Mia Goth, and again I apologize if I mess up the name, Felix Kammerer as Victor Frankenstein's younger brother, William. Now, when the film started, I fooled myself into thinking that this was going to be an actual step-by-step, page-by-page retelling of the book, and I did that because it actually opens... Excuse me. So sorry. It actually opens in a ship stuck on its way to the North Pole, where they find Victor Frankenstein in the snow being chased by something. But that was an illusion. I did that to myself. No one else to blame. It does take quite a bit of its inspiration also from the 1931 film. Now, this is a gorgeous movie. It's from Guillermo del Toro. Of course it's going to be gorgeous. The sets to me felt more like they were the sets of a movie musical. There was room and space for all of these actors to move in. But for the most part, they stay pretty central into the screen. Sometimes they are further back on the set, but they stay more together than apart. They're not using all of that space, which is a very deliberate choice, I feel, by the director to add to not just the enormity of the story, but the pressure on the mind of our characters, particularly Victor. The acting is incredible. You just, of course it's going to be. It's freaking Oscar Isaac. Why would it be anything else other than fantastic? Mia Goth has made quite the name for herself in the horror industry, but also when she played Harriet in Emma. So this casting to me is a very good choice for who I am used to that character being. Now, I will say, the first time and the only time I actually read Frankenstein, up until now, look at all my fresh notes, was 20 years ago. I was incredibly lucky. As a teenager, fresh out of high school, I was gifted by my Nana and Papa a trip to Europe. So I got to do something that very, very few people, I'm sure, have been able to do, and that is read Frankenstein while actually at Lake Como. It was an incredible experience. I have never been so immersed in a story or book than I was then. The original film I saw way before, much younger. I was in elementary school, probably about 7 or 8 years old when I woke up, and my mom had it on the television. And it was at the scene where Maria gets thrown into the lake and killed by the creature. I was exposed to a lot of horror as an infant and child. Like, my papa used Child's Play to babysit me once. So it's a funny thing for myself how much horror's actually been part of my legitimate childhood, both by choice and by accident. Anyway, so back to the point here. There's a few things that I want to talk about that stick out in Guillermo del Toro's version against the book, and I still don't understand why. So, for instance, one of the biggest things that we have seen over many, many iterations is that Victor Frankenstein's father is horrible. This is the worst version of him that we have ever seen, at least that I can recall, because I have not seen all of the iterations. Like, I haven't watched Victor Frankenstein. I haven't seen I, Frankenstein since it was originally released in theaters, even though that's a totally different story. My point being, there are so many versions and so many retellings. Like I said, this is part of our culture where when you say Frankenstein, we see the monster. We see the creature. We don't see Victor Frankenstein, but we know what you're talking about. And those of us who are a bit on the know-it-all side do love to say that Frankenstein's the doctor, not the monster, except he's not even a doctor. That's another thing. Anyways, I'm jumping ahead of myself. Okay, so in the movie, they give him an abusive monster as a father. We see him not just, he's beating knowledge into Victor as a child. Victor's convinced that his father let his mother die, even though he's the best surgeon in the world. It's very clear how violent this man is. But when you look at the book, Victor's childhood and that of his siblings is idyllic. They have a beautiful, happy family, even though his father is so much older than his mother. They don't talk about love, but they talk about their friendship and how well they treat each other, how well they get along, how great everything is. There's nothing that Victor and his siblings, when they later come along, and Elizabeth, are denied. They are given everything they asked for. That is something that I've always enjoyed about the original book, and naturally, having watched the movie, there is a point that I'll get to later when talking about Elizabeth, when it finally occurred to me to really go, wait, no, this is much different, not just the regular different. And I think, again, this happened because I allowed myself to be fooled by the opening. And it's Elizabeth's death and the reason for her death that had me stop and do that thing that I do, which is pick up the book to read again. So yeah, rereading it, because this is so in our minds all the time, it's shown over and over again that Victor's father is a monster. Even in his iteration of Once Upon a Time, it's shown that Baron Frankenstein hates his eldest son, Victor, but dotes on his youngest son, William. This is something that is very specific in Guillermo del Toro's story, that While Victor looked like his mother, William looks like him, and therefore he loves him more and gives him more attention. The book tells you that monsters are made inside of men, not by their surroundings. So that is something that I wish would really come through in any iteration of Frankenstein. Strangely, Once Upon a Time's Frankenstein is really the most emotionally relatable, in my opinion. Again, I'd have to go back and watch and dig through, but from the ones that sit at the top of my mind, he is the one that you can really feel for. He wants to save his brother William when he dies. And William becomes the creature because that's the one person who he loved in that iteration. In Guillermo del Toro's story, Victor hates everybody. He feels no love for anyone, and what he classifies for love later on when Elizabeth is introduced isn't love. It's obsession, at least to me. So I think when you do this over and over again and you make that statement that a person has to come from a bad family to be a bad person, it sets unrealistic expectations for the world. Because bad people can come from anywhere. People who have dangerous obsessions, like trying to play God, can come from anywhere. Now, they make a choice in the film to make Victor and William poor. After the death of their parents, they have no money. They just have their title and the estate, but they have nothing else. So this is another thing. Now, I get it for the story because they are introducing a brand new character that is Christopher Waltz's character, Hollander. I believe his name is Hollanders. And he's the money source for Victor. Okay, I see what you're doing with the story. I see why you make this choice. But you're also depicting a little bit of that, what will people do for money? Granted, later on, when Hollander is asking to be put into the creature's body on the day of its birth, Victor says, no, we can't do that. We can't put you into this body. And it's not because of money. Victor was going to do this one way or another. In the book, he's able to, because he has funding. Yes, he's at school. He does have his father's money, but he's still digging up graves. He's still finding bodies. Just like in the movie, they literally are stealing bits and parts. They don't do that here. They make it easier for him. Hollander is funding everything. His money is coming from the wars. He is a firearms dealer. So this is a man that is manipulating someone to get something he wants by using money. And I believe Guillermo del Toro is doing this as a comment on wealth, not on the poor and what they'll do for money, because as I stated, Victor Frankenstein's going to create this creature one way or another. It's just a matter of how long it's going to take him. And Hollander showing up and giving him all of this money is just speeding the process along. Now, Hollander is the uncle of Elizabeth in this story, and Elizabeth is engaged to William instead of to Victor, which is in the books. This is important because it allows Hollander to observe how Victor interacts with Elizabeth, and thus gives him a new sense of control over Victor. with this idea that he could say anything to William at any time. Though he doesn't. That's like, Hollander's actually not that terrible of a character. He doesn't commit any crimes on screen that we see. What we see is a desperate man who we learn has syphilis and is dying, trying to do whatever he can using the money he has to extend his life. But that desperation means he also doesn't understand the science. Where is the soul located? We're not putting your brain into this body. This body already has a brain that was put into it. There's not enough time before the storm hits to get the electricity to animate the body, to take that brain out and meticulously attach every little bit back into this creature's body. He just has no way. This is the line that Victor draws. It's both immoral and physically impossible. So he's not a terrible character. He seems like he'd be a fun guy, but he is definitely a representation of wealth in this universe and what the wealthy will do for themselves over anything else. Basically, coming down to when he dies, we're not really that upset. I will hardcore applause. Well done. Denise wants to get on this too. She's also very impressed that when he falls after his altercation with Victor and his skull cracks against the ground and you hear the actual crack and Victor picks up his body and the brains fall out, fantastic. Denise approved. She highly enjoyed watching that scene twice. Yeah, it's been a good couple of weeks for Denise, actually. Lots of death on that screen. Now, I did make a note to highlight how consistently the age of Victor Frankenstein is different from in the book. In the book, he creates the creature at about 23 years old. Everyone refers to him as Dr. Frankenstein, but he's not a doctor. He never completes college. He never graduates. There's no degree. He's just insanely intelligent and driven mad by that intelligence. And how, if you've never been so obsessed that you just kept working and working on something, and then you snap out of it and you're like, I've completed the task. I've done the thing. I made the quilt. I wrote the story. I cleaned the bathroom. He didn't get that relaxation. As soon as he finished his project, he went, holy shit, I just took a bunch of corpses, stitched them all together, and now I have a terrifying monster in front of me. Another irony here is they make it really obvious in the book and in Guillermo del Toro's version. And they actually say it in the 1931 film as well. They're specifically looking for healthy parts. They want broad shoulder. They're making an attractive monster. If you're building something from the ground up and you can pick and choose body parts, they're gonna choose the most attractive ones. So the fact that you have a hot creature in Guillermo del Toro's, it's not a surprise. They make it very clear. His version is also incredibly sexual, and I do not think it's just because Oscar Isaac has chemistry with legitimately everyone. He reaches across Hollander at one point when they first meet to grab his glass of milk. He does not need to be that close. Could it be interpreted as a power move? Sure. Could it be interpreted as being socially awkward genius? Sure. I don't think so. I think he just wanted to get up on that for a second. Anyways, okay, yeah. So they always make him in all of these films an older person. I think in the 1930s, he was probably in his late 20s, early 30s at that time. Oscar Isaac is in his 40s. It is actually really hilarious. The truest in age to Victor Frankenstein is actually Lisa Frankenstein. Now, that is a whole nother story and a whole nother day that I could absolutely talk about. Both hit and miss for many different reasons. But back to the point now. In this case, I think it is a little bit showing specifically for Victor's obsessive tendencies. The way he spoke about his mom in the beginning felt more like an Oedipus complex than anything else. She belonged to him, which was really creepy. So when he believes that his father kills her, he's taking it as, it feels more like he lost a lover than a mother, which is very disturbing. So when he meets Elizabeth, it is also still more a feeling of obsession. Here is this beautiful young woman. Oh, she has an interest in science, and oh, she'll stand up to me, and she's my brother's fiance. All things that are going to interest Victor, but nowhere near as much as his obsession with beating death, with showing that he can create life, that he is a god. So when he brings the creature to life, he never experienced, this version of Victor Frankenstein never experienced a father figure. He lost his mother figure. And when he brings the creature to life, he is expecting a walking, talking being, not a baby. He is not capable of handling a child. So this thing he has been obsessing over looks like a failure to him because he doesn't have the emotional capacity to deal with it. It also makes him jealous of Elizabeth's protectiveness and feelings towards the creature in just a few short scenes, because she rejected him, and he has an unhealthy view of female relationships and an unhealthy ego where there's no reason she should have rejected him. He's intelligent, handsome, has the title of Baron. Why on earth would she choose anyone other than him? And here is his failed experiment. Granted, this is what pushes him to fully believe the creature is a failure. The creature has only said Victor. He's gotten stronger, but he hasn't learned new words. He isn't progressing the way Victor feels that he should. So Elizabeth's interest in him, her protectiveness, is feeling like an insult. Now, Elizabeth overall in this, upon my first watch, I don't think I was really paying that close attention to her scenes. So it was that when she got killed, that was when I really kind of went, I don't recall that's the way she dies in the book. I don't recall it was their wedding night, but I don't think it was the monster coming for her in a romantic way. And that whole scene, she runs to the creature, she hugs the creature, he hugs her. It again felt very sexual, rather it was meant to or not. Rather it was meant to be the creature reaching out for someone, and this is the only being outside of the blind man who had ever shown him any sense of comfort and respect. But it felt incredibly awkward and weird and made me question it. Frankenstein being the one who kills Elizabeth, I like that a lot. His shot, and then once again blaming the creature for his mistakes and the crimes he's committed, feels very accurate and right, not just to the creature or to Guillermo del Toro's version, but to the Victor Frankenstein of the book, by which I mean something I have completely forgot 110%, because for as often and how large of a part Frankenstein plays in our society and our pop culture, the thing that is consistently left out is the trial of Justine Moritz. Okay. If you don't know, because you haven't read the book, you've only seen 10 of the 8 million versions of Frankenstein out there. Justine Moritz was a servant in the Frankenstein household. She was adopted in by them, raised by them. She nursed their mother, who was dying of scarlet fever. And she was dying of scarlet fever because she was nursing Elizabeth back to health, but she wanted Elizabeth to live. Justine was described as beautiful and intelligent. She had a hard life. After the death of their mother, she stayed at the Frankenstein estate for a little while, and then her own mother, who is described as having hated her, has gotten ill. So she goes home to be berated and abused by that mother, who at the same time is begging for forgiveness until she dies. And then Justine returns to the Frankenstein estate. In the story, William is just a child. I would say, because I don't think they really clarify it, he's probably about 6 or 7 years old. Basically, they've replaced William's death in the 31 film with the death of Maria. But Justine is found as a servant with a little locket portrait of Frankenstein's mother that Elizabeth had put on William the night that he died. With no evidence, Frankenstein, when hearing about William's death, believes that it was the creature coming and punishing him. The villagers, with very little circumstantial evidence, meaning the portrait is found on Justine, she can't account for where she was the night before, even though they have an actual trial in the book, and she went to visit a friend, but upon returning home to the village, the gates were locked. She was trying to be nice, didn't want to wake anybody. She hears about from somebody that William's disappeared. So she's locked out of the city anyway. She goes and she tries to find William. When she can't, she finds a place to sleep for the night and then enters the town in the morning. But she spent the night sleepless. She was out looking for William. She couldn't rest. She was nowhere comfortable. It was cold because this is the Swiss Alps. So she has nobody to back her up when she is accused of murdering William, except for Victor. But Victor refuses to do so because if he takes the stand, they're going to call him a madman, because his story about having made this creature and the creature being the one who killed William is so incredible, nobody would believe him and he'd probably get locked up. So he just stands by as Justine is convicted of William's murder. He goes with Elizabeth to speak to her. He receives comfort from Justine because she feels so bad about the death of William and that the actual murderer is out there getting away with it. She comforts Victor in his grief and then gets killed for it. We don't see that ever. If you know of a version of Frankenstein that shows that, I'd love to see it. There's another story that gets cut out, and that's from the creature side. It gets redone in Guillermo del Toro's story when he is hiding in the mill and watching the family and then spends the winter with the old man. that version gets retold. We see elements of it here and there. Once again, that kind of Maria and her father are a little bit of that. Maria shows the creature kindness, and then seconds later, he kills her, not understanding what he's doing. The point is, we get a little bit of that. It's not the story that's in the book about Felix and Agatha and how Felix saved, her name is Safi, saved her father. Like, there's a whole story that we don't get, and it's not needed. It's retold or cut and shortened to something that makes sense and is much more easily digestible. But we never hear about Justine. The closest that we get is, for whatever reason, they rename characters in the 1931 one, which I didn't know. I just really learned that it's an adaptation of a play that's an adaptation of the book, where they renamed Victor Frankenstein Henry Frankenstein, and his friend Clerval, I think is how you say his name, is renamed Victor Moretz and is shown as having a thing for Elizabeth in the 1931 film. But again, I just read the first half of Frankenstein. If Clerval has a thing for anybody, it's for Frankenstein. It's for Victor. Like, there's... And maybe that's just me, but, I mean... Yeah, it still feels really sexual. Anyways, this is something that we don't see. And a way I personally have never thought about Frankenstein in general is as either symbolism or an allegory for a woman's bodily autonomy. Okay, right? So my whole life, I am a millennial. I am the generation of Jurassic Park. I questioned as a kid in 1994, just because you can, does it mean you should? I was there for, or I should say I was there. I read the articles. I was in middle school when Dolly the sheep was cloned. The questioning of rather man should create life has been a core part of my being and my education and the things my mother exposed me to. Like, just as a philosophical question, not as a scientific one, not actually, science is not that's not my strength, okay? Not at all. But philosophy and discussing it has always been part of my life. So it is interesting to me, and this is one of those things that happens as you age. I always recommend go back and read something you either didn't understand when you read it when you were younger, or something, well, maybe avoid the ones you really loved when you were younger, because those hurt if you reread them and suddenly you're like, ew, not what I thought it was. But let's look at it like this, okay, right? Men now, and for generations, have wanted to control a woman's body. Our right to make choices, our right to have children, whether we want to or not. That is something men have wanted to control, and we are fighting policies right now to keep the rights to our own bodies, and certain areas have lost it, endangering the lives of women and children all across the U.S. And these are things that have happened all across the world for hundreds of years. You can view Victor Frankenstein not just as God, but as the creature being the thing that he births, right? And then he immediately wants to destroy it. He wanted the creature to be intelligent and smart, and as soon as it is, he wants to get rid of it. He looked at this thing in the book, laying on a table, it came to life, it came to him in his room, and he ran away. There is no contact between Victor Frankenstein and the creature in the book for minimum of 2 years. at least 2 years before he sees him again. In Guillermo del Toro's, we get that scene. We get the creature coming into Victor's room, and you get it, the retold scene from 1931 of him going, "Look at the lights." But then the creature isn't developing the way he wants. It's not acting the way he expects it to. So he wants to destroy it. He's jealous of Elizabeth's feelings of whatever they happen to be towards the creature. He wants to destroy it. He feels guilt after he sets the whole place on fire, and he does try to go back in. Like, you have that one flash of, oh my God, what have I done? But then the next time you see Victor again, it's the night of Elizabeth and William's wedding, and he's there hitting on Elizabeth again. He doesn't care anymore. That problem is gone. In the book, in the story, we see it over and over again, that the creature comes to Victor and asks for a partner, for a wife, for somebody who understands him. And Victor refuses, right? This makes sense. He feels like he already made a mistake. He went against nature. He created life, and he never should have. Look at all of the things that have gone wrong because of it. Now, I am not a religious person, but I have some basics, and I believe that the basic is Eve came from Adam's rib. She was made by God as a gift to Adam, the way Elizabeth was gifted to Victor at the beginning of the book. Elizabeth is something that Victor should be able to control and have. The creature is something Victor should be able to control. And when he can't, both of them get punished in different ways in the film. In the book, Elizabeth is killed by the creature on their wedding night. I knew I was right about it. And that is his punishment from the creature for not giving in to the creature's demands. Now, my point back to the bodily autonomy for women and how it relates to this book is, since the beginning of time, the majority of men, not all men, I'm not saying that, hold your horses, but a ton of men, a ton of rich men, like, say, I don't know, a Baron Frankenstein, feel like they deserve women, that women are their property, and that they have a right to control the choices that women make, whatever that choice may be, and that they have the right to destroy women when women stand up and fight back against it. That is what you see in a parallel between the creature and Frankenstein. Now, my last few notes for Guillermo del Toro's version. Upon, like I said, I went back and I watched it this second time for Elizabeth and trying to understand where she would throw herself in front of the creature like that, why it felt as romantic as it did. And it's because in Elizabeth and Victor's second meeting, after he creepily stalks her into a church and then pretends to be a priest so that he can hear her confessions and tries to be like, oh, I know you're into me. They go out and they have dinner, and she had bought books, right? So he's trying to guess what those books are, and he goes, oh, it's a romance, because you're a woman, and of course it's going to be a romance. But no, they're books on insects, and they are scientific books. And she says that her interest in science is about purity. So when she is researching bugs, when she is holding up the skull in her uncle's home, when she is showing no fear towards cut open bodies. It is because she's viewing the body as pure. It's the soul and the person inside of the body that are not pure. This Elizabeth has spent her life in a convent. Somehow, when she first meets Victor, when she and William joined Victor and Hollander at dinner, she's been out of the convent for 1 week, and in that time got engaged to William. It makes sense when you think about how pure he is represented in this story. Everything about him, in Victor's eyes, he's blonde instead of brunette. He's got blue eyes instead of brown. These are the things that his father likes, that are a little, Yahtzee-esque, if you will. He's viewed as being pure and beautiful. So it does actually make sense that if William looked at her and went, "I'm in love at first sight," that she would agree to marriage, because, and it's funny, this is actually something that's in the trial scene of Justine in the book. It's a line stating that you would guess she was pure because of how beautiful she is. So I think that is where her interest in William comes from. Her interest in Victor is more about his brain. He challenges her in a different way. And it looks a little bit fun and exciting maybe, but it is very short-lived for her. He is not what she's looking for. She believes in purity. So it does actually make sense that she would view the creature, especially when he's locked up, when he's chained and he's showing her the leaf. Again, a reference to the 31 film in the flowers. That this is a pure creature. He has not been touched by the outside world at all. So her interest of any sort is very obvious. And I think I missed that line on my first viewing of it. So when she throws herself in front of him at the end, when they hug, it had felt so weird. And it does feel weird if you miss that moment. If you're not paying attention to that, I get it. Random complaint that's not really a complaint. I just wanted to share it. Like I said, this movie is beautiful. The costumes are incredible. Set design, absolutely amazing. I hate her wedding dress so freaking much. I know the sleeves are supposed to be an allusion to the Bride of Frankenstein. That makes sense. I still hate it. I think it's ugly as hell. Versus her wedding dress in the 1931 film. Gorgeous. Loved it. Now, my last two things are actually about that set design and the symbolism that they hold in the film. First, we'll say the Green Man. This one is very simple, as the creature is hiding out in the blind man's home. There's symbols of the Green Man all over the home, and the family is saying that a spirit is protecting them, and the Green Man is a nature deity. He represents new life, and when the creature is there, he learns how to read and speak. He learns about kindness and love by watching this family. So this is his rebirth. His original birth was violent and cruel. This is his rebirth, his second chance. That sadly ends in more violence. Now, the one that really, really throws me, because it is more of a symbol, I'm trying to decide, is it about the creature or is it about Frankenstein? So the tower, right? He has this tower. Hollander and William found him this tower so that he can conduct his experiments. This is purely based off of the 1931's film. It is not in the book whatsoever. This was about creating a scary atmosphere. This set's incredible. It is gorgeous. But you have this huge Medusa head on the window and on the wall in the laboratory. The story of Medusa is she was a priestess of Athena who was assaulted by Poseidon in Athena's temple. And Athena punished Medusa by turning her into a gorgon, by turning her into a monster. So any man who looked upon her and made eye contact would be turned to stone. The point of the story is that Victor Frankenstein's the monster, not the creature, right? So Medusa's turned into... I need to work this out because I've tried writing it out, I've tried thinking it, and sometimes you just have to say a thing for it to make sense. Medusa is quote-unquote the monster. The creature is quote-unquote the monster. So then is Victor Athena in this analogy? He's the one who is punishing the creature? Because I don't think he's Poseidon. Right? Because Poseidon assaulted Medusa. And if Medusa is the creature, then that doesn't work unless you're saying that all of the parts of the body and physically making it are the assault, which sort of works, especially if you think further down the line about how when Medusa's head is cut off, you get Pegasus, and there's another creature as well that gets born of her blood, and Poseidon is considered their father. So I don't know. It's hard. I'm not fully getting it. I don't know if it was the best choice or the clearest choice, but it definitely makes sense to Guillermo del Toro. If I stumbled on it there, or if you guys have the answers, please let me know. I would love a much clearer answer to that. Now, is there a chance that this could have sent me down a much, much, much deeper rabbit hole, much like the way of the House on or the Haunting of Hill House? Yes, but I am fighting it. I'm only doing it mentally. I'm not taking all that time beyond it. Like I said, rereading the book, watching the 1931 film. I might go find those episodes of Once Upon a Time. Could end up taking a lot more time because I'm just crazy like that. Alright, anyways, so we are going to wrap this up pretty quickly with just a few quick shout outs. In the television subdivision last week, I binged through season 2 of Nobody Wants This with a friend, and she's the one who was like, of course you're gonna notice this. I am a huge Kristen Bell fan. I am a Marshmallow. I own the DVDs of Veronica Mars. I contributed to the GoFundMe, Kickstarter, whatever the hell it was for the Veronica Mars movie. And hate me if you will, I actually don't hate the ending of the fourth season because I have seen Noirs before, and it was either going to be Logan or her dad, guys. Those were your choices. Logan or her dad. Anyways, my point being that when she gifts the character of Noah his Valentine's Day present, and it is a poster from Kazam, which is the Shaq genie movie that everybody believes is the Sinbad genie movie. We only see the top of it, right? That's because the kid in that film... Oh my gosh, sorry. Apparently the emergencies outside of my window today are a lot, and I hope everybody is okay. It's just I'm very close to emergency services where I live. Anyway, so the kid in Kazam is played by Francis Capra. And if you are a marshmallow, then you know that Francis Capra would be Eli Weevil, aka Weevil from Veronica Mars. Yeah, so just a quick shout out to that, because if she had to hear, then you guys have to hear. I am curious as to why they didn't show the entire poster. Yeah, just, I was like, I wonder why. I wonder what was up with that, if it was like a legal thing, who knows. But, like, you can see from everything that she's ever done, the people who work with her always come back. They always join her. The amount of actors that are crossover between anything Kristen Bell is in is kind of insane. So just a few quick shout outs to the Tabletop Hilltop. We had episode 2 from Tales of Wood Creek, and the puzzle that created a portal with Spot was super cool. The way that Amon and Deborah get along in these 2 episodes, because it looks like they're the only 2 she's going to be in, make me really hope for Miss Marvel to make an appearance in Daredevil, not just her dad. So yeah, they looked like they had a lot of fun. I thought it was cool. Spot the tentacle monster, super fun. Now, Critical Role, the soldiers are out on the road, and yes, if you have ever played a D&D game, you are not trusting a nice old man in the woods who has a toy chest. So the distrust of everyone at that table, of specifically Travis at that table, because he is so suspicious of everything all the time, makes a ton of sense. And then finally, with Push the Roll, they ended the 3-episode arc for the 1931 Miskatonic University reunion disaster. Let's see, it was Rashawn Scott and Ashley Birch were the 2 guest stars for these 2 episodes as Angel Caulfield and Diana Patter. Diana Patter was my favorite. I loved her. She's amazing. And I thought it was even cooler that the way the dice decided to tell this story was that these are the 2 characters, the 2 guest stars are the ones who fall victim to this curse and this god, and while everyone dies, they don't, but they do, and I kind of love it. And every time I engage in gossip now, in my head I'm just like, this is Diana Patter, just a little gossip at work like we like to do. Yeah, I'm like, oh, this is just a little patter. Alright, so that is it from my geekdom. Thank you guys so much for visiting, and I will see you next time.